Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dan Crawley, and I want to welcome you to another Students of Wealth interview. I have a very, very, very great guest for you today, Todd from financialmentor.com. Todd, please. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on the show, Dan.
Excellent, excellent. So just to give you guys a quick run through, I myself, as you all know, I'm committed to building wealth. So I believe that it's important that I study money. So through my growth and through the things that I'm learning, through the research that I'm finding out, one of my whys is to help you all live forward and move forward. And so I'm here to share some of the things that I've learned. But it's always better if it comes from the horse's mouth. So I asked Todd to come in and share a couple of things about himself, as well as his thoughts on building wealth with you all today. So we'll begin as usual by having Todd give us just a brief rundown of what his story is and how he got started on the road to building wealth. Todd, please share.
Well, I mean, I've been kind of at it since I was a kid. I was an entrepreneur since a child. So I've always been an entrepreneur. Started with paper outs and, started with one paper out and then saved the money and grew that, and then got a second paper out and a third paper out and ran them off a cool motorcycle I bought with the profits from the paper out so I could deliver more papers in less time. And this kind of epitomized the entrepreneurial journey, right? Solve problems, do things more efficiently. And so I had a boat refinishing business when I was in high school. Because I was a big sailor, and so I refinished boats for a profit. I had a pool supply business when I was in college that I did during the summers. I sold pool supplies. I just been at it forever. And so I did the hedge fund business when I came out of college. I realized that a lot of the guys that I knew were going into lifestyle slavedom. They would come out of college and they'd buy the Porsche, they'd get the fancy apartment, and they'd work 60-hour weeks and live in cubicle nation. And I just looked at it and said, that didn't look like any life for me. I just didn't have that big of a value on lifestyle or pretentious consumption. It's never been a big thing for me. Like, if you could look at the camera, you can't quite see it in this view, but this desk that I'm sitting at is the same desk I had as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It works great. So what? You read a book, you need a comfortable chair, you need a comfortable bed. I've never been, a pretentious consumer. It's just not been an issue for me. And so, to me, life well lived is a life about experiences, not stuff. And so, keeping up with the story here, making long story long, got into the hedge fund business coming out of college. I was dedicated to building wealth, and I realized that I had to become a master investor. And what better way to do that than in the hedge fund industry? Master investing is not done through financial advice, traditional financial advice. There's a sophisticated level to the game. So I went straight to that level of the game. I became a partner in a hedge fund. That's ultimately how I built my wealth. And then sold that company and, quote unquote, here's air quotes for the camera, air quote, retired at age 35. I'm 55 now, as you can tell from all the gray here. So that was a solid 20 years ago now. And I'm building Financial Mentor, which is an educational service. It's about giving back and also about building a cool business at the same time, utilizing internet technology and information technology to deliver great value at a good price point for people and help people out.
Excellent, excellent. So you definitely brought up some good points. And the biggest point, I believe, is like you said, you didn't have the only aspect of money. You had an aspect of money outside of consumption. And I believe that's, well, as I've learned, that's key, because if you can't, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you can keep. So if you always are spending your net on like the shiny toys, then you're not going to ever really be moving forward. So
yeah, there's a subtle angle on that, which is not just about consuming less. It's about finding joy in other things, I think. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will talk about how not getting the toys and stuff, and that takes listeners to this feeling of scarcity, like they can't have the stuff they want. And the key is not that you can't have the stuff you want. The key is not wanting it in the first place, because your values reflect something different. So the idea is that every dollar gets spent, right? Every dollar you make is going to get spent one way or another. You either spend it on lifestyle, or you spend it on savings and security, but it all gets allocated one place or another. And that allocation is dependent upon your values, and the joy you get from it is dependent upon your values. And so it's not about living without, it's about really getting clear on what's important to you and then making your spending reflect that. And why I phrase it that way is really important is people get into this right wrong idea, like the right way to do it is this and the wrong way to do it is that. And I think something unique in my message is there is no right wrong. It's about what's right for you and what brings joy to you, because in the end, it's all about fulfillment.
Man, excellent point. Fulfillment is key. And like you said, it all comes down to your values. So to piggyback off of our last topic of, you got into the hedge fund, like you said, and then you sold that. So was there any moment in that journey where you felt that you experienced a sense of failure? And if so, what are some of the things that you did to overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel all the time. If you're going to play, you're going to fail, right? I mean, but I don't really view it as failure. There's setbacks. It's kind of like that Thomas Edison thing. There's a lot of ways not to do something. What is it? There's 1,000 ways not to do a light bulb, but there's one that works. And when you get the one that works,
exactly.
It's really cool. And I'm not trying to be cheesy about it. It's just, the entrepreneurial mindset is you're solving problems. And so, I mean, I solve problems all day, every day, and I make a lot of problems and I make a lot of mistakes. That's just part of the process. There's a couple key principles. One is risk management. So when you make mistakes, you control the risk, you control the downside. And then the other key principle is, I think, what is it? Marie Forleo kind of coined this phrase or became famous for it, is that everything's figure outable. So like you just kind of embrace like where you want to go, and then you figure out how the hell to get there. You don't worry about, oh, can I do this or can I do that or whatever. You just decide, well, that's what I want, so that's what I'm going to go do. And then you just start digging in and you do it. You decide if you're willing to commit to pay the price to get there. And if you are, then pay the price and go get there. So anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I agree, Todd, in that everything is figure outable. I definitely believe that as human beings, we have the ability to learn and figure things out. So can you just briefly kind of like elaborate a little bit of what your experience has been with, like you said, establishing a destination and not necessarily knowing how you're going to get there, but just believing that I can figure it out?
Okay, well, like, here's a great example. Like, one of the things you talked about mistakes, but I didn't really answer you properly. I went off on a tangent. Sorry about that. So like one of my bigger mistakes from a financial standpoint that I tell people a lot about was selling the hedge fund, right? Because basically I killed the cash cow for a few pounds of hamburger, right? And I never should have done that. That was really stupid in hindsight. In terms of life planning, it was a great decision. It forced me down another path, which I don't regret at all. It's been a path of tremendous growth, which is one of my primary values. To me, life is about becoming the best version of yourself you can become. And if I had stayed in the hedge fund business, I wouldn't have grown much as a person. I would have just, made a hell of a lot more money than I did otherwise. And I would have, compounded money. I would have added a few percentage points to my bottom line, probably improved my investment skills a little more. But none of that's life-changing. None of that is life-changing like the growth I've been through in building Financial Mentor and all I've been through on this journey. But anyway, in terms of mistakes, that was one of my biggest mistakes from a financial standpoint. That error in judgment cost me millions. I easily could have converted the investment management business to a cash flow machine and hired staff to do it. But I just didn't have the experience, and I didn't have a good mentor to help me find the way. And so I blew it and made a stupid decision. But you just asked, I was answering an old question. What was your most recent question? Sorry, Dane.
The most recent was talking about that desire, the belief in your ability to learn and figure things out, and how important that is. And just like you said, establishing a destination, but not necessarily knowing how you're going to get there, but putting your faith or your trust or your hope in the fact that, well, I do believe in my ability to learn and figure this out so that I can get there.
Yeah, so let's look at Financial Mentor as an example. I started this in '98, right? Which is like ancient times in the internet world. But I did every mistake in the book. All I did was I saw Corey Rudel speak, and probably you haven't heard of Corey Rudel, but he's the guy that taught a lot of the famous guys you have heard of, like Yannick Silver and a lot of the other guys. Yes. Yeah, all those guys stand on the shoulders of Corey Rudel. He was the original that really understood what internet marketing was and how it was a direct marketing medium and how the internet would work. I mean, he was way ahead of his time. He was a brilliant guy, but he also liked to race Porsches really fast, and he was in the passenger seat of a Porsche that went into a wall at 200 miles an hour.
Whoa.
and that's why you haven't heard of him. But had he lived, you would know of him very well. He was a shining star in his day, the leading star, actually. But anyway, when I started Financial Mentor way back when, I didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew was that I didn't want to die with the knowledge I'd created in my head. I have, as you listen to me talk, I have a very different viewpoint on how all this fits together. I get told that constantly. To me, it's perfectly normal because that's the reality in my brain. But everybody else, they say, oh, it's very different and that I stand for something different. What it is, I don't know, but that's what I stand for. And so, I didn't want to die with it in me. I was willing to go out and pay the price to create an education portal and to get this out of me and give it back to the world. I had spent decades learning it, and it was time to give it back. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I put up a brochureware site back in '98. I made every mistake in the book. The site was done in frames. It did well enough that it filled a boutique coaching practice. So then I kind of fumbled forward with a few coaching clients. I did well with some. I made mistakes with others. Overall, I helped people. I charged super low fees so that it was always giving more value than it costs. So was it a great business model? No. It was a cute little boutique coaching practice that put a little coin in my pocket as I was learning and trying to figure the whole thing out. About 2008, I got introduced to WordPress. And suddenly I realized there was a content management system, CMS, that I could actually implement my dream. I had now the technology by which I could do what I wanted to do. It was almost, not impossible, but it was expensive and cumbersome to do when you had a web developer for everything, Whereas with the CMS, you could do it all on your own. So anyway, that opened the doors to building Financial Mentor the way I wanted. That's when I sold my real estate portfolio and focused on building Financial Mentor. I continued to just fumble forward. Eventually, I developed the 7 Steps curriculum. There was never a plan. It was all figure outable. I just kind of stepped forward with a clear intention, which was to give back and to have a valuable educational portal that really served people. My whole vision was to separate the financial education and financial advice business from financial product sales. In my day, they were synonymous. Like if you wanted financial advice, you got it from 3 places. You either got it from the media, you got it from your friends or family, or you got it from your broker. And each one of those had its problems, right? Friends and family weren't qualified to give financial advice unless you just happened to get lucky genetically and were born in the right family. Media, I call it financial porn because they're really in the entertainment business. They're not in the financial advice business, right? Because their revenues are based on advertising. So their whole job is subscriptions and viewer counts. And that's done through entertainment. That's why you have guys like Jim Cramer out there, right? It's not about quality of financial advice. It's about quality of entertainment. That's why all the women on there are just stunningly beautiful, right? Because they're trying to get the old men to watch. So anyway, and then you've got brokers and advisors who are biased by commission incentives and income incentives that are built into how they sell stuff. Even the fee-only financial planners, unless they're truly fee-only, which is a fairly rare animal, there's back-end incentives often. And so you have to be really careful. And so the whole principle behind Financial Mentor was it's education only. I have a lot of free education. I have some paid products. And so, if you develop enough trust with the free education, you want a paid product, it's there as well. If not, then you just use the free stuff. But it's all about education. There's no product sold except for education products. So that was the principle behind it. And I just figured it out as I went. I just kept adapting and kept moving, and I still adapt and move. It's all figure outable.
All figure outable. And I believe an important part you shared, Todd, was the whole point of you didn't necessarily have a plan. You didn't necessarily have a let's just say a SMART goal per se, but you had a vision. And from that vision, you were able to, like you said, move forward.
Well, entrepreneurs solve problems. And what I saw was a serious problem. I looked at what people were taking for financial advice and I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, right? And it took me a long time to figure this out. I'm what I would deem an infomaniac, right? And that's starting with an I, infomaniac, not N, right? And so I'm a voracious learner. I've sold I mean, you can see behind me walls of books, and I've sold walls of books. I had to sell off walls of books, some dating back into the 1800s, in order to make room for all the new books. And most people aren't going to do that. Most people aren't nutheads like me that are going to sit there and figure all this stuff out and assemble all this knowledge. And so, you know, there had to be a source. There needed to be a resource of putting this stuff together in a simple, actionable way. So that's what I'm trying to provide.
Man, it's amazing. So if all you guys are watching right now, you haven't been over to financialmentor.com, go over there right now, join the mailing list so you can get the 52 weeks to financial freedom. And from that, it's gonna totally change your life. And so kind of like within that vein as well, Todd, can you just kind of like speak about when you believe you had your first aha moment when it came to wealth building, and where it just finally all clicked and made sense for you?
So are you saying, like, when did I commit to wealth building, like as a path of life?
Commit to it. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So for me, there's actually a couple different points. Like, I can remember as a kid, I would go down, I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I can remember as a kid, I'd go down to the BART station, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit. It's like the local train station that runs around. And my dad would come in from work, and we'd go down in the station wagon, and I'd sit in the back of the station wagon. We'd pick up my dad, right, from work. He'd come in on the train. And every day was like Groundhog Day. You ever see that movie with Bill Murphy, Groundhog Day? Right. It was like every day was like Groundhog Day, man. All the same people would come off the same train at the same time wearing the same suits. The only thing that would vary is the tie they wore. And, you know, even as a kid, that struck me. I was like, oh my gosh. And my dad was a good dad, right? He's reliable and responsible and all that stuff. But I just went, my God, if that's all there is to adult life, cash it in now. I'm done, you know? And so then I had then my second experience on that was an early commitment of, and that's I think where I got my entrepreneurial bent, because I was an entrepreneur since a kid, and I think it was related to that. And then I remember in college, I talked about this earlier in the interview, but where my big aha moment was I was riding my bike through Santa Monica Park. And I don't know if you know pictures from Santa Monica Park. It's pretty famous because it's in a lot of movies will use it as a backdrop. It's just this beautiful park overlooking the Pacific Ocean on the bluffs down in Santa Monica, California, which is outside of LA. And it's where a lot of bums live because they have a lot of services, right? So these guys sit in the park all day and play guitar and talk and hang out and read books or whatever. And then on a bad day, they go into the library, right? But they have all these services. They got food trucks that come down, healthcare trucks that just take care of these guys, right? And I was like, wow, man, these guys got it better than my college buddies who'd already graduated to Cubicle Nation. I mean, they got their whole day to themselves to create and you know, think and do what they want. My buddies in Cubicle Nation are working their rears off for a faceless corporation, selling off their creativity. So anyway, it just struck me then. And so it was in Santa Monica Park that I literally committed to financial independence. And I just looked at it and I said, you know, if I'm going to lead an economic life, because I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, right? I mean, I came from nothing, you know, nice middle-class upbringing, but I was in debt when I came out of college. So I had to start from nothing or less than nothing. And I just said, hey, if I'm going to have to lead an economic life, I may as well make it amount to something. And so I may as well organize it to result in wealth. It's just like this conscious way you design your life to create financial independence. That's what I teach in that Step 3 course in the 7 Steps to 7 Figures. It's you design your life to result in financial independence. It's not that you create some investment plan or some ethereal thing. It's actually a life design process where the back end result is financial independence. And I started that path in college. So literally I went to the bookstore that day and I started picking up biographies on people who built wealth. And I started just voraciously learning and reading, and I just committed to that process. And so basically I was just the crash test dummy for everything I teach now. I just walked the talk and did it.
I feel the same way because my story literally kind of parallels yours in that I remember being in college and I went to it was like an event through one of the student organizations that I was with, but we were there for a week or so. And I just remember seeing like the same thing over and over again. Like you said, when your dad was getting off the train, I was just like, man, like this, I'm about to graduate in 2 years and this is what I have to look forward to. And it was kind of at that moment with me as well that I was like, well, I kind of like had the same thought process as you, Todd. Like I was like, well, if I'm gonna have to build wealth anyway, then I might as well design my life around it. So I think the first book that I went to actually go buy at Barnes & Noble when they were still in business was it was Think and Grow Rich, and it was a securities analysis by Benjamin Graham, because for some reason I just I guess I just told myself, like, if I'm gonna have to, I knew I didn't know anything, but I was like, if I'm gonna have to learn this stuff, then why not learn from like the best? So I was like, well, who's the greatest investor, to date? And Warren Buffett. Well, who did he learn from? It was Benjamin Graham. So let me go read Benjamin Graham's book.
Yeah, so
And that's just how I began.
Graham Dodd is like the warm-up act for value investing. So you started right with some good stuff.
And I've been going from there ever since. So I believe you kind of already talked about this, but can you just share some of the things that are exciting to you right now, and some of the things that you are anticipating will excite you in the not so distant future?
Well, I can sit here and talk all I want, but look what I'm doing with my life, and that'll tell you even more, right? So I think internet entrepreneurship is like really smart. I view the website that I'm building as online real estate, and the location of that real estate is determined by what I create. So it has value just like real estate has value. It has a location just like real estate has location. The only difference is I don't have to pay millions for it. I can create it from my brain power and energy. So anyway, I'm very excited about that. I think that's really cool. I think that's what's happening is the technology is converging with the social patterns. They're feeding off each other, where the internet's flattening the playing field. And I'm not the one that created that. The World is Flat from Thomas Friedman. Very, very good book to read. So anyway, I look at where I'm putting my time. I mean, I left real estate intentionally 2006, 2007, right before the crash. I sold off my entire portfolio down to just the house I live in here, and sold everything and focused on my internet business, internet education business. So that to me is the exciting thing. That's a frontier. The way the technology has come, it's just this window right now where the small guy has all the technology he needs to play level with the biggest players. But the real difference here is I'm a real person. I've got a personality. People can hear me talk. I'm not a faceless corporation. They can either decide to trust me or not trust me. And there's ways to build trust by delivering value to people. And that edge never existed. The fat tail of information exchange never existed on a cost-efficient basis before in time. There's no boundaries now. I don't have to answer to a New York publisher to publish a book. I can make it a bestseller. As a matter of fact, even now getting to bookstores, the boundaries are coming down. Like all boundaries are coming down. We're all equal players now, and it's powerful.
Man, and that's very important for all of you out there listening, because Todd made an excellent point. The internet is more so probably like the equivalent of the early 1900 gold rush, in that it's wide open. It's the wild, wild west, as they would say. So definitely go to financialmentor.com and go and consume this man's information, because you're missing out on an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. So, and by the way, what excites me could change a year from now, right? Like, let's say we get a big real estate crash or a big stock market crash. It's part of what I teach, which is this idea of opportunistic allocation. Like a lot of people teach, just straight up diversification. I do believe in diversification as a risk management principle, but concentration is how you build wealth, right? Exactly. And so how do you manage concentration, diversification in the same portfolio of assets, because they sound contradictory? And so what I teach is the idea of opportunistic focus. And that's what you've seen me practice in my own life. So like when I ran the hedge fund in the 1980s and 90s, I was completely focused in the paper asset arena, which just happened to be the greatest bull market in history. No coincidence, right? And you saw me in 98, I diversified. I moved my assets over to real estate. I saw an excellent opportunity in real estate, and that was right before the real estate bubble that culminated in 2007, 2008. So I started really concentrating on real estate in 98, sold off my real estate in 2007, 2008, and now you see me concentrate ever since then in internet and building my internet-based information business. So these are opportunistic focuses. Times change, levels of opportunity change with valuations and technology, and you've got to stay in front of it. What I'm saying today may not be applicable a year from now.
So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate real quick, Todd. For all the people who are saying, well, the internet's not real. How can you build a real business from the internet if it's not real? What would you, or what would just be like some thoughts that you had for an individual who had such a closed mind as that?
Well, first of all, that's a bit of a judgment there, Dave. They're the closed mind. I'm not
I'm
going to
talking
tell
about
them.
a personal experience. So that person's watching right now. That's the reason why I said that.
How about this? You disagree with their viewpoint.
I disagree with their viewpoint. Better one.
Yeah. Um, so first of all, they're right and they're wrong, right? So in the way that they're right in that it's not a real thing in the sense that it's a real asset you can put your fingers on. Okay. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that that's only relevant. I'm trying to even think of how it's relevant. It'd be relevant in the sense that inflation, but inflation will affect pricing on the internet as well equally. So I'm just walking through this. You asked me because I hadn't really had to answer that before. I guess I'm going to have to deem it fairly irrelevant because even from an inflation standpoint, like one of the advantages of an internet business, let's say you get a hyperinflation, right? Which is where most real asset people go to, right? They're like, oh, you got to own gold or you got to own real estate because in a hyperinflation, it's the only thing government, can't destroy through depreciation of the dollar. Well, the cool thing about an internet-based business is it can be denominated in any currency and you can relocate to any country. You're a host. All you need is change your host to another country and denominate your pricing in another currency. I mean, all my sales can exist in any currency. It doesn't matter. So I'm completely location independent. And if there's a hyperinflation in the US, I can just reprice it somewhere else.
I never thought about that, Todd.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that sense, it's even stronger. It's also completely mobile. Like, let's say the government tried to trap you within the United States, right? Like they try to trap assets in the United States. And this is extreme thinking, right? I'm not forecasting this in any way. But let's say there was a whole asset crackdown and the government was trapping assets in the United States. If you can travel, you can take it with you, because it's all electronic. It's all exists throughout the world,
That was an excellent point. Something that I never even thought about, because you're so right in that. Because we do exist online, all you have to really do is just get a new host and just port your files over. And now you're, like you said, change the denominations of the currencies. And I'm in business now. Instead of doing business in US dollars, I'm doing it in pounds now or euros. And
well, that's actually how countries the reason I learned that is there's countries where citizens have been cracked down asset, where I'm not going to go through names or whatever, but certain countries there was crackdowns. And one of the ways people ported assets out of the country was by buying very expensive domains. So they would buy expensive domains in their local currency, and then they would liquidate them in Swiss francs or euros or dollars or whatever, and deposit them in those accounts in that country. And that was the way that they got money out of countries, is through domain purchase and sales.
So that's kind of like an arbitrage. No, that wouldn't be necessarily arbitrage because they're not necessarily
it's just a way of getting out of currency controls. Yeah, again, this is we've gotten really esoteric here. I mean, let's change the topic because this is really bizarre.
Let's bring it back. Well, actually, we're into my favorite part of the Students of Wealth interview, which is the 5 questions. So we're going to just kind of like do a kind of like quick rapid fire, kind of like what just comes to mind first type deal here. So 5 questions. So the first one is, what does financial freedom mean to you?
Passive cash flow from assets exceeds expenses.
Real simple and to the point. What is your favorite personal finance software to use, if any?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have any.
Yeah,
I don't use any of the conventional stuff. So like I have my own spreadsheets and I have my own stuff. With that said, my wife does our books on QuickBooks. So the business books as well as our personal accounting is on QuickBooks. So we do use that. I think that's probably the only commercial software in finance that we use anywhere.
So QuickBooks it is, and I'm pretty sure all of you understand or know what QuickBooks is. So if you don't, but like you just said though, Todd, regardless if you choose to use software or not, you should still be keeping some sort of a spreadsheet or ledger because you got to know your money.
Oh yeah. I'm not
talking about.
No question. We have super accurate records and we track everything. So I'm not saying that. I just don't like how some of the software does it. It doesn't work for the way I approach things. So.
Excellent. All right. So number 3, what are your top 3 favorite books for building wealth? Some of the books that you feel that you just read all the time.
Wealth. Well, I think you mentioned one in the interview. Didn't you talk about Dominguez and Robin with Your Money or Your Life? Did you say that one? No, you didn't. That's a
No.
fun one for just wrapping your head around understanding money and the life energy you pay for money and how money flows in and out of your life and what price you pay for it. I mean, that's a fun book. Is it my favorite wealth building book? I don't know. One of the things you'll find, Dane, is I don't think in absolutes. So
Okay.
like, I don't have a favorite three. If I've read, I mean, I conservatively, I've read over 1,000 books on finance, personal finance. So to come up with a favorite three is probably not realistic. I get little gems and little tidbits from all of them. I'm always learning something, different ways of understanding stuff. I think it's more like what I do is I do just-in-time learning. Like if I'm working on a project, I'll dive deep into a project on books and stuff. So like right now I'm working on evergreen sales funnels on the internet. And so I'm just completely immersing myself in resources and courses, books, and other people's evergreen sales funnels. I'm just in this total immersion process. And that's how I do it. Because the problem now is there's so much information that you can't learn everything about everything. And it's all out of date by the time you go to apply it. And so
Yes.
the most you can do is have like a good solid overview understanding of principles and how the puzzle pieces fit together. And then when it comes time to actually do something, immerse yourself, learn it, do it, and then now you're an expert, go on to the next thing, and on and on and on.
That makes perfect sense. And I believe I just had an aha moment in realizing, like you said, all the different in perspective and paradigms, and that, not everybody thinks in absolutes. And that's big for me because, as you spoke earlier in the interview, like growth, well, that's a very important value for me as well. And like when you just said that, it gave me that aha moment, like, damn, like that was kind of like me thinking in absolutes, and also as well as like damn, that was a pretty judgmental statement, like as opposed to just like, yeah, we have a difference in I disagree with his or her viewpoint. So just within those two things right there, I know that's going to allow me to move a lot faster, because maybe there was something in my life based upon those two beliefs that was stopping me from doing something or acknowledging something. So I appreciate you for that.
Hey, so what it is it's about trying to find the good in anything and everything around you, right?
Okay.
So like if I go to absolutes about the three best, then by definition, everything's inferior, as opposed to finding the good in each one of those items, right? Or like if I say, oh, this guy's idea is full of crap, and as opposed to saying, well, what's he really getting at? What's the kernel of wisdom in there? What's he trying to communicate? What's the truth here? What do I disagree with? Like trying to see the subtleties. I think what people do is they have snap judgments. They have, it's like quick workarounds that the mind does in order to just quickly deal with stuff, as opposed to, it takes a little more effort the other way. But again, this comes from years of coaching. I mean, I've been coaching for 2 decades. And if I was to snap judge, nobody would want to stay a client, right? Because nobody wants to be judged, and so anyway.
That makes perfect sense though. So the next question, do you have, not who do you have, but is there a
trying to figure out how to rephrase the question so it's not an absolute, right?
Exactly. Are there any other thought leaders in the financial community or wealth building community that you seen that you believe are worth listening to in this day and age, outside of yourself, of course? Because like I literally tell all my friends now, like, if you're not subscribed to financialmentor.com, then you're slipping.
Yeah, I don't think that any one person has all the sand stuff. Everybody's got different viewpoints. I think if you want to understand frugality combined with like Stoic philosophy, nobody's done it with a more entertaining and more clear voice than Pete over at Mr. Money Mustache. I think Brandon over at Mad Fientist has some interesting messages to share. I think Paula Pant over at Afford Anything has some really cool viewpoints where she's combined real estate and kind of the wanderlust lifestyle. And so we all bring our unique twist to the equation. And if you go, another one, JD Roth, infamous for Get Rich Slowly. He's now running a site called The Money Boss. I love the way he writes. He's just a really smart guy and he knows his stuff. Do we agree on every little detail? No, but we have way more in common than we have differences. Like, the 99% we have in common and the 1% difference we'd probably work out if we got in a deep enough conversation on it. you know, because this stuff is really pretty straightforward. I mean, the principles are there. Anybody that's deeply immersed themselves knows it. And we all have different ways of saying it. We have different slants on it based on what interests us. And so I think there's a lot of really good voices out there, and they just have slightly different twists.
There it is. Last but not least, how important is being active and exercising to building wealth?
Critical. Health is your wealth. So I actually put my health in front of my wealth. So like my morning workout routine comes before I get any work done. You know, so that's a statement there. I mean, I will put the hours into preparing healthy food rather than put the extra hours into getting work done. So health is wealth, and it's a top priority. And particularly, you know, you get older, right? Like you're a young guy, right? But me, I'm getting older, man. I got to take care of my health. You know, it's a big deal. So anyway, yeah, it's critical. Working out, total priority.
Total priority, ladies and gentlemen. So and you said I believe another important point is that you do it in the beginning of the morning, like kind of like the first thing. Because I just know through my experience that if I try to wait to work out like at the end of the day, then 9 times out of 10 it's not going to get done. So waking up at the top of the morning and that being like my first quote unquote appointment for the day, I know I always typically get it done when I approach it from that perspective, as opposed to just like, oh, it was a rough night, or oh, I'm feeling tired, I'll just do it later, and it never gets done. Today.
Well, you can apply that principle to everything you want to do. You know, if you want to write 500 words a day, do it first thing in the day. Make an appointment with yourself. You know, same thing with anything you want to get done, just prioritize it. Make it happen.
Make it happen. So that about rounds it up for today's Students of Wealth interview. Todd, I had a great time with you. We shared some good value. I believe you shared some very valuable wisdom. And so before we let you go, like, is there any last words or just nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
No, it was a great conversation, Dan. It was a pleasure talking with you.
It was a very much pleasure speaking with you as well. So please let everybody know all things Financial Mentor, where they can go to it and what they can expect to receive once they get there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the cue. So tell me what they can get. Come on over, new subscribers. I'm sorry, I just wasn't even thinking. New subscribers, they can get a free ebook, 18 Essential Lessons of a Self-Made Millionaire. I give away a free course called 52 Weeks to Financial Freedom. It goes through all the steps you'll go through in the process of building wealth, gives you the full framework so you know what to expect, you know what the path is and how it's all laid out. So all these things are about building relationship with people and giving value. There's paid courses as a next step if they decide they like what they're learning. But there's all kinds of free resources. I also have one of the biggest resources of calculators on the internet, financial calculators, makes the math of wealth easy. So just a ton of free stuff. And it's all at financialmentor.com. So how's that for blowing the layup for the pitch, huh, Dane?
All right. But I knew you would speedily recover. But with that, like I said, Todd, I'm definitely I'm grateful that we had an opportunity to have a conversation and speak about it. You're definitely a thought leader that I personally have that I follow. And like you said, I do Remit Seti. He's another one that I follow. A couple of other ones. Get Rich Slowly, like you said, Financial Samurai. But I believe in, like you just said, it's more so about understanding the principles and then immersing yourself in the little details. But for all of you all listening and looking, or however you're choosing to consume this content, like I said, go to financialmentor.com, join the mailing list, and really, really immerse yourself in the 52 Weeks of Financial Freedom. You will not be disappointed. You can go to billionairebelief.com to join my list, and I offer a wealth creators toolkit, and the link to Financial Mentor is one of the 3 tools that I'm offering you. And it's for a reason, because Todd has created, as he said, a financial educational resource that is free from the bias of selling back-end financial products. So if you want to become your own financial expert, like that to me, as of right now, like I believe, Todd, like your spot is one of the first places that people need to stop. So make sure you go there, financialmentor.com, and it was a pleasure for me at Billionaire Belief. I'm here to help you guys win. I'm here to help you guys do what I can. I'm here to be your financial crash dummy, as you shared about Todd. Like literally, that was one of the reasons why I created Billionaire Belief. Another reason was because I said, I definitely want to share the things that I'm learning. And like you, there wasn't really a resource that I was able to find where people can start learning this stuff, or get more so pointed in the right direction, starting from scratch. And so I started the Billionaire Belief back in 2010, and this is 2016. And so I like you, I've been figuring it out along the way. And so my message to all of those viewing is similar to what Todd just told you. Like, the principles, as long as you got the principles and you're able to go to a place like financialmentor.com and just get a framework or a blueprint for the path ahead, after that is just putting in the work. What do you think, Todd? Is work essential?
It's about getting it done.
Yeah, man. A lot of people don't think. A lot of people think, and that's another thing too. Real briefly, can you just talk about that? Kind of like devil's advocate again. People who just assume that because it is the internet that it's going to be easier.
No, this business is a lot of work, man. To build a platform and to do all the outreach and the marketing, as well as create all the content. No, man, this isn't a slam dunk at all. I mean, I love the business and I love the nature of it, but if you think this is a cakewalk and you're just going to slam it up and walk away with millions, you're deceiving yourself.
Big time. So you heard it from the horse's mouth himself. Like you said, go to financialmentor.com, join the mailing list. And like I said, I keep encouraging you guys to join it because it is real value there. So go and don't sell yourself short. But once again, Todd, it was a pleasure. I look forward to definitely continuing my studies at financialmentor.com. But also, too, like I said, we'll definitely have to have another conversation in the not so distant future so we can continue to spread the wealth.
Sounds good, Dane. Thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime. So you make it a great day. And to all your audience's members out there looking, I appreciate you for tuning in. And you know where to find us if you have any questions. Peace.